The sun dipped low as I helped my daughter, Emily, into her wheelchair beside our front gate. Her smile wavered beneath her lavender party dress and glittering tiara. Tonight was her 13th birthday party at her best friend's lake house, a celebration she'd been dreaming about for months. I rattled the gate latch, but it wouldn't budge. Standing in my path was Karen Peterson, clipboard in hand and lips pressed in a rigid line. She wore a judge's expression beneath soft porch light. "Mrs. Nguyen," she began, voice clipped, "I'm sorry, but your daughter cannot attend this event. Section 8.3 of the HOA bylaws disallows gatherings for residents under special care status. She's unfit for public functions." Emily's eyes widened. "Unfit?" she whispered. Karen frowned. "It's a safety measure. You know the rules." I swallowed hard. Emily isn't a risk. The host property has full ADA compliance. I verified wheelchair ramps, handrails, and medical staff on standby. I held up the printed permit and inspection report. "This is sanctioned by county health and safety authorities." Karen tapped her pen. "HOA rules override local permits. I enforce community welfare. If she attends, I'll issue a citation to you and the host." She glanced at Emily's trembling hands. "I'm doing this for her own good." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "I just want to have fun," she said, voice breaking. The gate's metal bars felt like prison. I knelt beside her wheelchair, brushing back her hair. "I promise I'll appeal this," I murmured. "We'll fight it." Karen's face softened for an instant, but she straightened. "I'm following orders from the board." With that, she turned on her heel and clicked her heels on the pavement as she walked away. Emily's tears spilled over. I brought her into my arms, holding her dress away from her as she sobbed. The party's laughter and music floated across the street, so close yet cruelly unreachable. That night, I sat at my desk drafting an urgent complaint to the HOA board and County Human Rights Commission. I attached Emily's physician's note clearing her for all social activities, plus photos of the accessible venue. My hand trembled as I typed, "Denied basic inclusion, child's emotional health at stake." Outside, the party lights winked in the distance, mocking our loss. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Will I ever go to a party again?" she asked softly. I hugged her tighter. "Yes, sweetheart, we'll make sure you can." The morning after the gate incident, I woke to a pounding headache and a clear resolve. Emily's tears from last night still echoed in my mind. I brewed strong coffee and pulled out my laptop, opening the HOA website and county disability access ordinances side by side. I printed both documents and gathered supporting letters, one from her pediatric neurologist, another from the party host confirming their full ADA compliance, and a third from Emily's school counselor attesting to her social needs. By 11, I was at the HOA office, folder in hand. The receptionist glanced up as I entered. "I need to speak to the board president, please," I said firmly. Moments later, I was ushered into a small conference room where board president Cynthia Morales settled behind a heavy oak table. 4 other board members sat around her, faces polite but guarded. "Mrs. Nguyen," President Morales began, "we understand your concern about your daughter's party attendance." Her voice was measured. "But HOA rules aim to protect vulnerable residents. Section 8.3 exists because of past incidents of liability." I exhaled and laid my documents on the table. "Section 8.3 cannot apply to my daughter. She is not a liability. She is a person with rights protected by federal and state disability laws. You cannot bar her from a private event on a private property that meets all accessibility standards." I pointed to the inspection report. They installed ramps, widened doors, and vetted medical staff. They even provided a backup generator. A board member, Mr. Lee, tapped his pen. "The concern is supervision," he said. "If a medical emergency occurs, HOA risk management falls on us." I pressed my fingers together. "I'll assume full responsibility. I will attend the party as Emily's chaperone, ensure her safety, and carry her medical kit." The host agreed. "You have no legal basis to override that agreement." I met their eyes. "Denying her this is discriminatory. I will file a complaint with the County Human Rights Commission if necessary." Silence stretched. The board conferred in hushed tones. Their expressions shifted from polite discomfort to reluctant acquiescence. Finally, President Morales looked up. "Very well," she said slowly. "We will grant a temporary waiver for Emily's party attendance on the condition that you sign a liability release and adhere to emergency protocols. This decision applies only to this event." Relief flooded me. I nodded and signed the waiver they provided, careful to preserve my right to challenge Section 8.3 in full. "Thank you," I said, voice thick with gratitude. "Emily and I appreciate your cooperation." I gathered my papers and folder, cradling them like a victory. Back home, I found Emily on the porch swing, fidgeting with her party invitation. She looked up, eyes hopeful. "Did they let me go?" she asked. I crouched beside her, holding her hand. "They did. You're free to attend your party tonight. I'll be there with you every step of the way." Her face lit with a fragile smile, and she threw her arms around me. That evening, we approached the lake house where the party was held. Lanterns glowed along the path, music drifted across the water, and children's laughter rang out. I wheeled Emily up the ramp, waved at the host and his medical volunteer, and settled into a lawn chair beside her. She exhaled, the tension of the past days dissolving into the warm dusk air. As Emily joined her friends at the water's edge, dipping her toes into the shallow end under safe supervision, I watched her laughter ring clear and bright. Neighbors sidled up, offering smiles and congratulations. Among them, I spotted a few HOA board members who caught my eye and nodded in acknowledgement. Tonight, Emily belonged, unhindered by outdated rules or overzealous enforcers. She danced beneath paper lanterns, her crutches set aside, surrounded by friends who saw only her sparkling spirit. The morning after the party, Emily bounded into the kitchen with a grin as wide as the sunrise. Her tiara was slightly askew, and remnants of cake frosting dotted her cheeks. "Mom, that was the best night ever," she declared, swinging her crutches over her shoulder. I brewed coffee, still savoring the warm memory. "I'm glad, sweetie," I said, pouring cream. "You shone like a star." She perched on a stool, legs swinging. Everyone was so nice, and you know what? She leaned in. Mrs. Morales came too. She apologized in front of everyone. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. She even danced with me. I laughed, nearly spilling my coffee. "That's wonderful," I said, pride soaring. But the victory was bittersweet. That afternoon, I arrived at the HOA office for a routine meeting, only to find Karen Peterson awaiting me in the reception area, clipboard in hand, her expression inscrutable. "Mrs. Nguyen," she said, voice low, "I'm here to discuss further compliance." My heart sank. "With Section 8.3? She nodded. "The board has asked me to ensure that no future events for special care residents occur without pre-approval. They want regular reports on attendance, supervision plans, and medical clearances." I drew in a steadying breath. "We'll comply," I said slowly. "But know this, Emily's right to socialize can't be forever held hostage by bylaws. She has the same rights as any other child." Karen's eyes flickered. She tapped her clipboard. "I'm just following protocol." I folded my arms. "Protocol shouldn't punish inclusion." I turned and walked past her into the boardroom. Inside, President Morales and the board members sat around the table. I laid out a new proposal, an annual inclusion initiative to streamline event approvals for residents with disabilities. It would waive Section 8.3 restrictions when ADA compliance was demonstrated and a caregiver was present. In return, the HOA would conduct quarterly reviews rather than pre-screen each gathering. The board listened, nodding as I detailed benefits, improved community cohesion, positive publicity, and reduced liability through standardized procedures. I cited the county's human rights ruling supporting reasonable accommodations. Karen sat at the back, lips pursed. When I finished, the room fell silent. Then Mrs. Alvarez, a vocal ally, spoke up. "This is brilliant. It protects vulnerable residents and makes our community stronger." Others murmured agreement. President Morales tapped her gavel. "All in favor?" Hands rose around the table, everyone but Karen. She stared at the floor, clipboard abandoned on her lap. The amendment passed unanimously. As I packed my folder, Morales caught my eye. "Thank you, Mrs. Nguyen. You've done the right thing, for Emily and for all of us." Leaving the building, Karen waited by the gate. She stepped forward. "I'm sorry," she said haltingly. "I didn't understand." Her voice cracked. "I'll support the new policy." I offered a genuine smile. "Thank you, Karen. Let's work together." That evening, I joined Emily on the porch swing. She leaned against me, humming her favorite song. "Will I be able to go to every party now?" she asked. I kissed her hair. "Every single one." She grinned and closed her eyes, content in the golden glow of our home. The night after the board's decision, our neighborhood buzzed with relief. Emily's party was no longer an isolated victory. It signaled change. I tucked her into bed with her favorite storybook, watching her drift into peaceful sleep. Tomorrow, I would oversee the Inclusion Initiative rollout at the annual community picnic. Morning dawned bright and clear. I arrived at the park pavilion early, greeted by neighbors assembling tables, balloons, and a wheelchair-accessible bounce house. The HOA banner read, Community Unity Day, and beneath it hung a new poster, Everyone Belongs Here. I spotted President Morales directing volunteers, and even Karen stood nearby, helping Mrs. Alvarez arrange snacks. I approached with Emily by my side, her crutches clicking softly. She wore a sundress and a shy smile. I knelt to her level. Ready for the big launch? I whispered. She nodded, eyes shining with excitement. At noon, President Morales took the microphone. Thank you all for coming. Today we implement our inclusion initiative, ensuring every event is accessible and welcoming, she announced. Applause rippled through the crowd. She gestured to me and Emily. Let's welcome our guest of honor, Emily Nguyen, whose courage inspired this change. Emily beamed, stepping forward as neighbors cheered. I lifted her wheelchair by the footplate and pushed her toward a decorated table where copies of the new policy were displayed. She pressed her tiny hand to the laminated document and looked up at the crowd. I like parties, she said, voice small but clear. Laughter and supportive cheers followed. Later, I led a brief demonstration of the new protocols. Pre-approved venues, accessible routes, volunteer chaperones, and real-time medical contacts. Karen stood quietly beside me, holding the clipboards that once blocked Emily's path. At the end, she stepped forward. I apologize for my actions, she said, voice steady. I misunderstood our community's needs. From now on, I'm committed to inclusion. The applause felt genuine this time. The picnic unfolded in perfect harmony. Children of all abilities raced in a three-legged relay. Young and old alike sampled gluten-free and allergen-safe treats. Music floated across the field. Emily joined her friends in the bounce house, her laughter echoing as she soared with a group of volunteers. I watched from a picnic blanket, heart full. As the sun dipped low, I walked Emily home, the evening air cool and comforting. She leaned against me and whispered, "Best picnic ever." I smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. Yes, sweetheart, and every party after. That night, I sat by the front gate and closed my eyes, recalling the fear when Karen first blocked Emily's path. Now the same gate stood open under string lights, welcoming every neighbor without exception. In that glow, I saw our community's promise. No child left behind, no voice silenced. The end.